Hey everybody, welcome back. Y'all, it's almost the weekend again. I cannot believe it. But more importantly, I'm excited that you're here and you're back with me. Just a couple of things before we kick things off. We have a very special guest tonight, you all. Before we hop into that, be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook at the Speaker Podcast, YouTube, Camille Essick Official. Y'all, my website is up, it's available, it's live. I have lots of great things for you. CamilleEssick.com. I'm on Instagram at Camille.Essick. And you can also send me an email at the speakerpodcast at gmail.com. If you haven't heard, I have new ebooks out available on the site. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Tag your friends because tonight it is for the singles. The girlies were in the room and it's going to be a great conversation. So with that being said, my sis, welcome to the show. Laronda is here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I really am. It's
Me
about to be a time.
too.
I know
It is, me
it.
too. And so, those that are not familiar with who you are, just let the listeners know just a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Well, I am Laronda. I am an administrator by trade, ministry consultant, ministry assistant, and I am the owner of the Faithful Flame Candle Co. And I'm so excited to be on here with my good sis, Camille. I don't know what we're about to get into, but I do know that it's about to be a good time.
It is. And I might have to go on and give me a little candle. I love candles. I love fragrant candles. So be sure we're going to plug that again at the end of the show because we definitely want people to know that you're out there. So, with the candles, like what scents you have available, what was the inspiration behind you creating your brand?
So right before COVID happened, one of my friends from high school, Atia, she posted something and she said, "What things are you buying that you can make yourself and make
Wow.
money off of?"
Mm.
And at the time, I was buying candles like every week. You know, you grew up in the
That
house on
nobody.
Saturday, you cleaning up
Yes.
candles, 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 candles. And so, I had $300. I had just quit my job. I had $300 to my name. I spent every dollar on my business, and that same week, I probably had made like $900 in profit off of pre-orders alone, and that was October 2020. And from that point on, I just, I kind of just started like, how can I make this actually I didn't think, how can I make this about God. God actually kind of infiltrated the idea, if you will. So even the name of my candle business, the Faithful Flame Candle, like, it's every single scent is biblical. Every single name, all of the fragrances are inspired by something that I read out of the Bible. They all have scriptures, all of that. So we had the Faithful Flame took a little hiatus over the last 8 months because I was moving, and I have a pet. So anybody with pets, your dog hair, your cat hair, whatever, it gets everywhere, and I don't like that. That with my business, we don't want to send no candles to nobody with pet hair. So we have been on a pause, but I am planning a rebrand for the end of the year, right around that Thanksgiving time. You know, when y'all like to go to Bath and Body Works. So
Christmas. That'll make a great gift. Yes.
yes, 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 yes.
Awesome. Please keep us on the post on alert for that because I love supporting my community and my people. I always say if there's something that someone within our community dollars matter, then I'm going to shop with us first, and being more intentional and more purposeful about certain purchases. Now, I know I cannot get everything, but certain things I can. If it's candle or a really good body butter, things like that,
And I
definitely.
will be adding butters and scrubs to the lines.
Come on,
So
because we need this black to not crack and stay healed and moisturized. Okay.
listen, I have a scent called Esther's Anointing, and
Yes.
it's a cocoa butter cashmere smell. It's giving rich auntie. You know what I mean? So I can't wait to release the butters and the scrubs. It's
Please
a
do.
I don't even want to talk too much about it. Like, y'all just go follow. We'll plug it at the end, and when we do that rebrand, you'll be the first one in the know. I'm really
Please.
excited about it though.
Yes. And I don't know if you've seen my social media. A lot of people that I'm cool with, I've known from college friends from, undergrad years, graduate years. When they have stuff and it's quality, I buy it and I make content. So I have gotten
Listen, PR
teacups,
package on the way. Don't you worry.
content tumblers, and even for larger businesses like Ford Club, we use saying King McNeil because I'm in a sorority that I've gotten merch from them, created content. There's been promotion there, so I'm big on supporting my folks. Like I really am. So
Absolutely. Well, we got you.
cool, cool. So I want to hop right into this conversation. Being saved and single out here in these social media streets. There's so much conversation, like the red pill community, the blue pill community.
Child, what
And
is that?
so you don't know? Okay, so like the red pill community is like the group of primarily men
Okay.
that I hate to say it's like the woman hater club, but it's like they blame whatever what happened to them in their childhood, or maybe they weren't the popular guy and now they've blown up and got a little money feeling themselves. But it's like, women this and women that, and women need to cook and clean, and it's a lot of toxic communication going on in
Mm.
that community, that with no accountability to their part. It's just always, it's our fault, whatever it is, it's our fault at the end of the day.
And that's the blue pill community.
That's the red pill community.
Okay.
Then you have like the blue pill community, which is the opposite, like, talking about healing and therapy, and, men, hey, we need to do better, and things like that. So you have these different spectrums of conversation going
Mm-hmm.
on. And I hear about this because I'm in the podcasting space, and to be, in the loop as far as dating conversations. So even bringing that in, and then you add living in the South with
Mm-hmm.
gender roles, and then you add the church onto that. There's so many layers. So you being single, what has life been like for you, filtering through these different conversations in the dating streets and still trying to be saved and be single?
Well, sis, a few things have changed since the last time we talked, but we'll
Okay.
talk previous. We'll talk
Yeah.
single days.
Right.
Honestly, the hardest part about navigating being single as a Christian is knowing right away this person is not for me. You don't need God to tell you nothing. Sometimes, let me say it like this. Sometimes we try to give people the benefit of the doubt,
Mm.
and we'll be like, you know what, maybe they'll, or that's not a red flag. That's a no, no,
So you mean
no.
you're like you're walking down the red flag to green?
Cause we it's okay. Let me say it like this. So I was single for since 2019 up
Okay.
until most recently, and I did not go on my first date until 2 years after that relationship ended. And it wasn't because I didn't want to date. I had to do some healing first, but men were weird. Like like especially once I like really start walking with God, like my taste in men changed, the conversations that I wanted to have changed, and it got harder. Like the pool got,
So how was it weird? Like, can you kind of unpack that a little bit more? Because I know a lot of people use the word weird, but like, what's the context behind that?
because people will try to cross lines and say that they're Christians. People will cross lines
False
and say that
representation. Gotcha.
yeah, or I wouldn't even go that far because we're all sinners, right? We.
No, when I say like the misrepresentative, like you present yourself to be something when you know intentionally you're not that
Yeah,
person, or you're saying
yeah.
this to
Or
try to get
you're
me.
not really about that life.
You're not about their life. Yes.
I had someone ask me on a date, like they tried to start low, like it's kissing sex, is this sex, is this sex, is that sex, and it's like sex is sex. What are we talking about?
What are we talking about?
Like, and then the conversation would continue on to be, well, once you make a commitment to between you and that person, people try to bring in the cultural differences. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Mm.
yo, stop playing in my face because you already know what this is. And honestly, that's not even the only thing. Like, just language, lifestyles, like that I know people, and again, I only dated that one person within that time. Like he like, yeah, I'm at the airport. I'm about to have a drink. Now, drinking is not a heaven or hell issue, but and let your convictions be your convictions. But when you introduce yourself to me as a believer, and you walk in this. I'm a godly man. I'm a this. You know how they try to introduce themselves as such, but they don't really be counterfeits. Exactly. Exactly. Yashika, yes, counterfeits. But let me tell you something. This same person, the I was hard headed though. The day that I was supposed to go on the first date with this particular person, I got a text message from somebody random. They sent me a scripture and was just like, "Hey, I was thinking about you. Read this scripture, whatever, whatever." So, anytime somebody sends me a scripture, I'm going to read the entire chapter just to make sure I understand the context,
Context
right?
is
Context is key, right?
key.
Girl, that scripture said, "Get out of it as quickly as you can. Save yourself from future pain." Yo, I had never had a rhema word like that before, and I was shook because I knew I wasn't supposed to go on that date, but I did it anyway. And I'm sitting there talking about some. So why is the Lord trying to protect? Why is the Lord trying to protect me from you? Girl, who do I think I am? It was a mess, and it ended in tears. It ended in the pain that the Lord tried to warn me uh, about.
So that leads to the next word, discernment. Discernment, context is key,
Uh
and
huh.
discernment is key. Because there's a lot of tomfoolery out here in the streets, whether if it's in the pews or on the on the streets for real. So let's dig more into the misrepresentation, because I too have encountered some wrong some misrepresentation, let me say that. And I had a situation, again, someone in church years ago presented themselves and they were an armor bearer. Let's start there.
I'm not even gonna get into it. Amen. Cause I don't
And
want to. I don't want this to turn into a beat the church boys up
no, no,
session. But
no, but we're being transparent. And hey Des, hey y'all,
hey,
hey
Des.
JC, and hey y'all. So long story short, the person would I'll say this, they were not who they presented to be, and it was very disappointing because from afar, I'm thinking like, oh, he's saved, this is and that, but he had other plans. But lo and behold, I stood my ground, and that was that, because I was not going to compromise and go down, the rabbit hole with this person, um, because you choose to misrepresent yourself. And character is so important, and that's what I want to really get to, is character is everything. We're in a society where you hear terms like high value, you hear all this terminology being thrown around, and I don't believe in high value per se. I believe in high character, high character, high integrity, because you can make 6 or 7 figures and be a high earner, but then your character and your integrity, your deficit, or you're emotionally and spiritually bankrupt. So when we say high value, let's first define value: high earner or high character. And that's where we have to get into the weeds of those things, particularly now where people very superficial, very materialistic. Because if you're a man of integrity, you're aligned properly with God, you have a prayer life, you're resourceful, you're a man of innovation, a man of vision, money's no question. The only thing I'm questioning is your integrity and how you live your life from day to day. So I think that, for you to experience that, um, I kind of want to get deeper into this conversation, because again, in church, you hear these narratives of fairy tales like, oh, we met at the convocation and we felt like, let's stop the fairy tales and the foolishness and talk
Yeah.
about the realities of maintaining our faith, and dealing with some harsh realities here, because a lot of times, a lot of people over 30 have kids. So it's like, what do you think about the realities of dating and being saved? Like, what are your views on that?
So I think I want to I'm gonna tie that to the discernment piece that you brought up when you first said this. So the real reality is when you are supposed to date, you're going to know that you're supposed to date. That's the first thing. Because sometimes we will try to get in a relationship or try to date. But even before I say that, a lot of us date because we're bored.
Mm.
Save girls, save guys. Don't do it. Find you something else to do. Go read the Bible. Go, I don't know, go do something. But
Go
that's
work
the first
out.
thing. Go work. Go work out. Summer is up on us, and our
It's
backs are still
here.
big.
It's here.
Okay, so that's the first thing. Like, I'm gonna speak for myself. There was a time where like I was lonely, or alone, and there's a difference. But I felt lonely, and I was like, dang, like I just want to be able to go out and hang out, and we girls, we want to look cute and put it on and go eat a dinner. Now, one thing about it is I was never the girl who was gonna go on dates for a free meal. Like, I'm going to buy my own food. You don't got to worry about that. Like, if you
Right.
think you're gonna get me out the house for some free food, I'm not coming.
Mm,
So there's
yeah.
that. But the other part of it is like another reality is when you are focusing on dating, you're focusing on the wrong thing. A lot of us make dating an idol. Some of
Mm.
us make marriage an idol. Like, we want to date more than we want to pursue God. We want to, girl,
Say that
I'm
again
not
for the
even,
people in the back, please.
y'all, do not make dating an idol. Do not make marriage an idol. Anything that takes the place of God in your thoughts, in your prayers, in your whatever, like, it is either an idol or becoming an idol. And I will say there was a time where I was thinking about marriage so much, and God checked me like, are you even ready to be my bride?
Mm. Won't he convict you?
And did. And this was like 2 years ago. And I was kind of shook by it because no, I wasn't. I wasn't seeking him like I was supposed to. All of my prayers were about me being lonely. They weren't about call. They weren't about ministry. They weren't
Healing.
about gifts, healing. They weren't about any of it. I
Yeah.
was so focused on, but because everybody else around me, like all of my friends were married and have kids and seemingly living their best life. And I'm like, God, why not me? Like, I'm talking about, I had a friend who got married in 3 months, and here
What?
I am single for 4 years. Yeah.
So I will say to that, I have not been in a relationship or dated in 4 years. I've been intentionally single because after my last relationship, it it really made me pause and say, okay, this is not good. And I was with that person for about a year. And of course, we start praying that prayer, Lord, if he's not the one, you
Ooh,
know,
let's talk about it.
and like, why'd I do that? Because that's exactly what happened. He knocked all the stuff off my little coffee table. God did, and was like, no. And so at that point, I was like, okay, let me sit with myself and see what was in me that attracted that person to my life, and what was in me that permitted that person to stay for as long as I did. And when I started to do that, I began to face some harsh realities about Camille. Now, not saying, that person wasn't wrong, because they were definitely flat out wrong for their part, but I permitted this, and I gave out permission for this person to be in my life. Why?
Yep.
And so that means, doing therapy, going back to God, going back to prayer, reading my word more and doing more digging, doing more introspection, self inventory. And so for the last 4 years, I have taken that focus off of, the marriage and all that. Not to say that I don't desire it, I do. But I think as women, we're guilty. We have this list of, I want him to be this and he needs to be that. But it's like,
No.
sis, are you half of the things you demand? It's not fair to him to say, this is that, when you want this dream man. But it was like, sis, are you the dream girl?
Let me say
And
something.
yeah,
I do not and did not have a list. To your points about healing and therapy, like, and I think I've heard you talk about this before, like, some of us try to keep Jesus and therapy separate. And it wasn't until this year that I realized how they work together.
mm-hmm,
Like, I've done some of my best healing in the last 6 months because I started therapy.
right,
But to that list, though, I am team no list. Like, I did not have any request other than, I guess I did have a list, but it was not like one of those like da 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 da. It
right.
was no kids, never been married, legit man of God. And if I had to add a B clause on there, it would have been a man that's sure about me.
Mm,
That's it. I
yeah,
wasn't looking. I wasn't. Like, oh my gosh, is that the one every time? Because, sometimes when you got guy friends or when guys come into your life, you immediately be like, oh, is that the one? Like,
Right.
no,
I
sis.
honestly, I think just for me, being intentionally single the last 4 years, my intention has changed tremendously. Um, and I call it the 3B plan, working on my brain, my brand, and my body. And that's been my focus. And in the last 4 years, I finished college, I got a master's degree, podcasting, releasing ebooks. Now I'm working more on my health journey, working on another digital product. And I've been so focused on me and healing myself. And, with Pastor doing the trauma series and going back
Mm-hmm.
and digging those things out, I've been so intentional about that. Not just because, oh, I want to be better for my husband, but I want to be better for myself. I want to be better for my community, for my friends, for my church, the people I'm around. And it's like, and of course one day my husband, but if anything else, how can we be a blessing to other people if you're not a blessing and an asset to yourself? And one of my prayers has always been, thinking about marriage, Lord, I want to be an asset, not a liability. Meaning, if
Mm-hmm.
you got broken areas in her areas, check those things, because you don't know what this man has gone through in his life, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't want your thing adding on to whatever trauma he has. We all have baggage. It's just a matter as far as who you want to unpack with. So as we
Mm-hmm.
go deeper into this conversation, first of all, if you all are liking this conversation, I need you to tag, like, comment, share, and really, as we get into this conversation, tag your friends, tag your girlfriends, your aunties, and your guy friends too, because we're here with Laronda and we're having an amazing conversation. So as we get deeper into Laronda, when you were doing therapy, first of all, one, what prompted you to do the therapy, and number two, what has been your odd moment since doing therapy?
Okay. So when I started therapy, I recognized. So actually, before I started therapy, I had a moment, and I kind of just broke down. I was like, I'm not well. And that was the first time I had
Mm,
admitted it to myself
wow.
because I'm a planner. I'm not always put together, but at least I try to be in my mind. Like I try to at least present okay. I don't have a good poker face, so like if you see me missing, that means I'm probably not okay. But I had a moment where I said and felt I am not well. And there were so many things happening in my life, and I recognized that I was the common denominator. I was like, oh my gosh, I am bleeding on people. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that prayer wasn't enough, but I needed something practical. Like I needed some practical help. I needed somebody who was neutral that I could talk to, that I could admit things to. Honestly, like my therapist, it feels like a confessional half the time. And be like, oh
yes,
my gosh, I've never said that out loud. Oh my
yes.
gosh, I didn't even think about that. Like I've had so many aha moments, right? But the biggest aha moment that I had was one of the theories that is about radical acceptance.
Let's unpack that.
Yes. So radical acceptance, and I'm gonna butcher it. So like if you have a degree in this, please don't come for me because I'm gonna give you Rhonda's version, okay?
Like I said,
so
take your time.
so the way that I understood radical acceptance from my therapist is anything that happens to you, there are things that are going to happen to you that you cannot control. There are things that are going to happen to you that you can control. And when the things happen that you can't control and they make you spiral out of control, how do you get back to level? How do you level yourself back out? And the
Mm,
answer to it is radical acceptance. Radical acceptance does not mean I agree. Radical acceptance means I accept that I cannot change this. I accept the whatever happened with this, but I cannot do anything about it. And so I don't need to live in it. I don't need to sulk in it. I don't need to wallow in it. I don't need to roll around in it. Whatever your term is, I don't need to do any of these things. So I started every time something was happening because like I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of those people who like I moved a little easily. Like something can happen and I'd be like, oh my gosh, my whole day is just shaking up. And so I got to the point where I was like, wait, can I change this? No. Okay. I accept it and I move on. I accept it and I move on. I cannot do anything about it. I can't do anything about what happened to me when I was 5. I can't. I can't do anything about the lady who just hit me, who just rear-ended me. Call the insurance, move on. There's no
Hmm.
point in me being angry about it for the rest of the day. And now I've probably taken joy away from if you have kids or your partner or your friends. Like, they don't want to hear about that.
So
Because, and
letting it roll off. Yeah,
yes, it's literally water off your back. Like, it happened. Okay, what's next?
that's good. There's a quote someone said before, speaking about the past, and we all have gone through things. Some people have had more traumatic past than others,
Mm-hmm.
but I love the quote. It says that your past does not dictate your future. It's only a point of reference. And
Whew,
we cannot, and there's it's not an actual term, but it's a term I coined. I call it emotional bookmarking. And we see it
I
in
love
people.
that.
We see it in people that they go through an experience or trauma, and maybe it happened at 16 or 20, and you may be 30, you may be 50, you may be 25, whatever your age is. Even though physically you have maturated, psychologically you stopped at that point of trauma. And I call it emotional bookmarking. And that's why we're having these conversations, and not just to move on, but to also process the feelings, the emotions. Prayer and therapy, they go hand in hand. And I always use the analogy, like, you go to the you see people about everything. You want to buy a house, you have counseling for that, with your realtors. If you want to buy a car, you go to the dealership and you talk to somebody. If something's happening with your body, you go to the doctor. Your mind is an organ. We go to everything for everything but our mind.
Whew. You know what? I want to add something because it's I really just got it as you were talking. So I want to say this for the people who are like on the verge or edge about therapy. I knew God as a mind regulator before I ever thought of a therapist.
Mm,
And this is not shading therapists. I still encourage
right.
therapy. But when, so sometimes, this is my thought. Sometimes, like, God won't allow you to go and do another thing until you get the revelation of who He is.
Right.
Like, once I was sure, like, God, I know you can regulate my mind. I've seen you do it actually. And it was, sometimes it was a daily process because of trauma, right? Like,
Mm,
somebody could say something to me and they would be speaking to 31-year-old Rhonda, but they said something that hit that rejection bookmark. Let's talk about it, right? They hit
triggering.
that
Yes.
rejection bookmark, and
Yes.
then they start talking to 12-year-old Rhonda, and Rhonda responded as 12-year-old Rhonda, not 31-year-old Rhonda. But that concept of radical acceptance is, I'm not 12 anymore.
Hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, whoever hurt you when you were 12, they're not that anymore.
Wow.
They're not. So accept it, move on. It's so much life to live. And I'm not downplaying trauma because I'm still healing from some trauma wounds myself.
Hmm.
And I can't pretend like, oh my gosh, I'm just whole and I'm healed. And no, it's a daily walk. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not going to live my life with trauma informed lenses on.
That's good.
Like, thank you. That's actually what prompted the therapy. I realized that I was responding to people trauma informed. I was loving people trauma informed. Being in relationships with people trauma informed.
Hmm.
Like, it was actually really bad. We thank God for therapy. And
We
we thank God for
do.
God.
I always say therapists, they're like ministers of the mind. That's how I look at it. It's mental ministry that ties into your emotional self. I think it all ties together. So going into that with these routines, you know, and we go through so many things in life. You have to still incorporate healthy living before being married. We hear a lot of people say, well, when I get married, I'm going to do this and do that. It's like, no, you need to be now prior to. Like, don't put your life on hold and say, oh, I'm not going to do this because I want to wait until I get married to do XYZ. Tomorrow's not promised, right? And so we have desires and we have marital goals, but what about living our best life being single? So, with that being said, LaRonda, what does healthy living, daily routines, and outlets as a creative, like, what does that look like for you?
So for me, I do have a, I won't say I have a gym routine, but because like the word gym routine just kind of scares me. It's like I don't want to commit to that. But what I will commit to is moving my body. So I have changed like what I eat. So when I grocery shop, like I'm not buying a whole bunch of snacks. I'm not drinking soda. Like I'm not. I have a balanced diet, and what I mean by that is some of us will be like, I'm not eating any carbs, I'm not eating any sugar, I'm not eating any this, and then 2 months later you're eating all of that because you actually kind of need it. So I eat pretty balanced. I have a move your body routine. So I probably try to go to the gym 2 or 3 times a week unless I'm traveling. And if I don't go to the gym, I'll like walk around my neighborhood or, TikTok have all kind of things. Child, you
They
can find a
do.
workout routine right on the internet.
They do. I got a
I
walking pad because of TikTok. I got it from Amazon.
See.
It's one of those walking pads, and Adelia, I think Teresa Thomas is her name,
Mm-hmm.
and Regina from Detroit. We're all in this 10K a day. We started a
That's
few
a goal
days
too.
ago, 21-day challenge, and we have to show our screenshots and do at least 10,000 steps a day, which is like 4 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 2 days, I was like, bruh, this is not it. And it's so crazy, like me being prior military, you would think I'm accustomed to like working out like crazy, but because of the pandemic, aka corona, you get off your routine. And I was like, okay, you can't blame it on the pandemic anymore. It's time to reclaim your time and your body cam. So
Mm-hmm.
I joined
Mm-hmm.
the group and I've been doing it. And now like the last 2 days, I found a couple of jumpsuits in the closet and slid in. My little flesh rose up a little bit. Was like, girl,
See.
I was
I'm
like,
not gonna lie.
the jump is suited. Okay. It did what it had, it understood the assignment. I was like, okay, okay. So now I'm super motivated, and it's like certain things. I stopped eating pork and beef years ago for health reasons. Pushing to drink more water every day, like switching to alkaline water every day. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
totally understand journaling. That's something I'm a
Yep.
big
Devotions.
yes, that. So yes, I absolutely agree. Like those daily activities really do matter. Hey, Deshaun, he said, all right.
I think
So
another thing that
uh-huh.
that I didn't mention that I do and I did more frequently in the past is baby, I will go somewhere. I will go find a plot of land. I'm like Ezekiel, baby. Give me a plain, give me a river, and I'm about to go be with the Lord. But I do enjoy nature, and I
Mhm.
do. That is my outlet. Like if I'm overwhelmed, I'm going outside. I'm going outside. Because
Yes.
when you go outside, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in here complaining, and the trees are out here worshiping God.
But my
Like,
so me, I'm one of those allergy people. So I'm out there
okay,
for a little while, then I'm itching and sneezing and scratching. I'm like, okay, enough of this. So, but
enough.
I love fresh air when I can. But right now, it's pretty good. But I
Mm-hmm.
totally understand, and that's one of the things I wanted to emphasize: like living life prior to marriage, not putting your life on hold because you're single or you're not engaged in a relationship. And there's so many things that we can do and incorporate, prior to, which leads
Mm-hmm.
to our next talking point. Like yes, Stacey, journaling is healthy. Getting to our next talking point as far as healthy living, authentic connections, and community. Like how important is that in this chapter of our life? Traveling, getting out, meeting people, networking, having sister circles, or a group of friends, your friend group. Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you kind of unpack that for us a little bit, Laronda?
Yep. So for me, I would say I went to a service one time at this church in Nashville, and I don't remember exactly what the preacher was talking about, but I remember him using an example of like identifying who your people are and
Mhm.
identifying who your inner people are. So like
Right.
Jesus had 12 disciples, right? But then he also had three that he was very close to. And
Hmm.
so that's my starting point. That's my launching pad. I have people who are who I'm in community with, but then I also have a core. And then outside of that, I network with their people because we all do different things. Like one of my people in my core, she's an estimator. my undergraduate background is in finance, but right now I'm pursuing a master's in divinity. So we have two different networks. Like even with the people who I meet on the production side, even church, like, at Spirit and Truth, we have an entire ministry dedicated to entrepreneurs
We
and
do.
business owners and leaders, and everybody is in a has a different network. So
Yes.
I do my best to be connected with people, even being in organizations like Toastmasters, right? Like you
Yeah.
never know who you're going to run into. So I think as far as community and networking, like I don't close myself off to anyone, and I always try to make sure that if I'm in a space, I leave knowing someone new.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part. You got to get in a space.
You have to
The
be in the
like I
room.
think COVID has still made us couch potatoes a little bit.
Yeah.
Like we don't we don't be outside like we used to be outside.
No. They try
And
to be, but it's kind of like,
but is it productive though? Like are we outside being productive, or
are we
what is
leveraging
that?
relationships?
Yep. Are we leveraging relationships? Are we um how are we stewarding relationships?
That part.
Because we can meet whoever we want to meet, but what happens after you meet? How are you maintaining that?
Yeah, I think that's very important as far as fostering the relationships, maintaining the relationships. And I think that kind of goes into social media because, you meet people, you scroll. And I think subconsciously, when we meet people physically offline, we're subconsciously scrolling, if that makes sense. Like, oh, okay,
That
I met
makes
this
perfect sense
person.
actually.
Yeah, like we met this person. Oh, great. Okay, to the next one. I got the like, they follow me, I follow them. But do you ever go back and circle back? Hey, it was great meeting you last weekend. Da, 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 just little things. And of course, beyond the emoji drop, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
even if in a dating or courtship situation, like just texting. No, pick up the phone call. Let's
Mhm.
schedule a FaceTime or let's go meet up and have coffee. So can you kind of unpack what that looks like as far as beyond the like and the scrolling emoji
Mhm.
I won't say mentoring, but managing that relationship and connection offline?
Yep. It's exactly what you said. It's being intentional about the relationship. So we don't like just flip through our Bible when we commune with God, right? But I'm using that as the equivalent for
Right.
scrolling. Like we sit and we talk, we sit and we seek, we sit and we receive. It's the same thing with relationships. So for me personally, I make it a point that at least once a month I'm doing something with one of my friends, right? At least once a month I'm in a room that I normally wouldn't be in, and I'm connecting with somebody new, right? So BCI just passed a couple weeks ago, and I remember somebody had like was like, oh, I don't know you, but like I want to connect with you. And
Mhm.
I didn't think it was weird that they were like, oh, let's exchange social media because that's what we do. But like the next day they were like, or maybe it was the same day, they was like, oh, it was so nice meeting you at BCI, da, 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 da. And my mom was like, that's weird, but it's not. Like that's how we network. And so
Right.
from that conversation, an exchange continues because it doesn't stop at it was nice meeting you. It's how am I getting to know this person? So maybe it is a cup of coffee. Maybe it is a, hey, I'm thinking about going to the Atlanta food festival. Like, pull up, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think we do enough of that. Like, I think FaceTimes and Zooms and social media has become enough for us. Like, me
Mm.
interacting on your post is not me engaging with you. It's
Right.
not.
Right. I
It's
call
not.
it real time connections, right? Meaning
Exactly.
I get it if we're like, for example, I'm in Charlotte, you're in Atlanta, but when I see you at church, more than hey, hey, how are you doing? How do you
Let's
feel?
talk.
Let's
Yeah.
talk. Or I know you're traveling, but the next time you're here, let's schedule a time and maybe we can go to Starbucks and talk for an hour and being
Mm-hmm.
intentional about that. And that's so important. I know we get very busy, but at some time, if you're intentional and it's good intention, then you should pause and make plans, which ties back into we're circling back around to dating, being
Mm-hmm.
intentional with those relationships, right? And
Mm-hmm.
saying, hey, it's beyond let's go to the movies or go bowling, but being in those spaces where there's not a lot of ASMR, there's not a lot of auto sensory stimulation going on here. We're in a space whereas you and I talking, I can read your body language, you can read mine. I don't just audibly hear you, but I can also discern you as well. So can you kind of
Mm-hmm.
unpack what that looks like for someone that's in going from this, oh, we're just cool, to now we're talking to maybe even dating?
Mm-hmm. So I can definitely speak to that. Same answer as the last one though. It's intentionality.
Hmm.
So knowing and understanding that what we have is important. So let's put all things aside. So I'm very much a card game girly. I have, the game we're not really strangers.
Oh, no, I haven't heard of that one.
What? It's from what's her name? Jada Pinkett and her daughter. It's the red. It was so popular.
Oh, see, I checked out with them after a lot of shenanigans. I
Yeah,
just
no,
fell out of
same.
it.
But the game is
Okay.
good. So they
Okay.
have like a self reflection version. They have a friendship version. They have a couple
Right.
version. They have all kind of versions. So I keep a game. And I know that
Okay.
sounds crazy, but because the truth is, we don't really know how to facilitate real conversation that helps us to get to know each other. Like, social media has made us so surface. That's my opinion. So surface with everything. And let me say this: there is a level of organic friendship and relationship that has to happen, but there are some things that you just got to pull out. Because one, I'm not going to be friends with nobody, and I don't really know the core of who they are.
Mm. What are your core
So,
values? Yeah.
what are your core values? How you treat your mama? How do you talk to your siblings?
Do
How
you
often do
talk
you
to your
talk to
siblings?
God?
Do you talk to your siblings?
And if you don't, why? Let's unpack that,
Let's
because
unpack
it's
that.
it's it's not, we're not judging if you don't talk to your siblings, because you might have a valid reason.
Right.
But is it unforgiveness that the reason that you're not talking, or is it you trying to keep your peace and you recognize that sometimes you have to love people from a distance?
Right.
So to your question, intentionality in, hey, let's go get ice cream, no phones, phones in the pocket, and I'm talking dating.
Yeah.
Like, and so to Stacy's point, she says when we have an intentional relationship with God, it helps us have an intentional relationship with each other. I am a firm believer that our relationship with God, like how we are currently in relationship with God, is a direct replica of how we are treating people.
Mm, that's
That's
good.
that's just that's just me. Like, I can't treat it. I know for a fact there was one time I was mad at God, and I was mad at everybody. When me and God like this, I'd be like, oh my gosh, the world is just the world. Like, just everything is flowers and lilies.
Oh, the sky is so blue today. Did you hear the birds this
Did
morning?
you hear the birds chirping? It's a real thing, but it's all of them go back to intentionality. When you value something, like when I'm gonna speak for me, when I value something, there is nothing that I won't do to make sure that I understand that person and that person understands me,
Right.
and I'm gonna do whatever it takes for us to get there. So if that's me pulling out a random little box of cards, because intimacy is important in regular friendships and in dating relationships.
Right.
And people, like, intimacy is not sex. Like in
Please,
marriage,
please
shoot,
say that again.
intimacy is not sex. Okay? Have a
Okay.
conversation with somebody. Sit at a park. Talk about your day. Buy a gift. That's intimacy. Okay?
Well, they say, don't tell me, tell me.
Don't tell me, zell me, baby. Okay? Apple Pay me. Okay?
Oh, Lord.
Don't be on here cutting up, Camille.
Becca. Oh, my God.
It's not. It's really not. It's not. It's so many other ways to be. Like, I think people have lost the art of thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
And that's important. That is actually one of the most important things when going from being single to dating. Like, I
Hmm.
just made that transition myself. And two of the biggest things that I had to really, really hone in is, like, how am I considering this person?
Hmm.
And what actions can I take that will show them that I'm thinking of them? And not just like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of you, but like, I thought about you. I
Yeah.
heard you say that you weren't having a good day, or you woke up late and you were tired, so I sent Starbucks, or what, just the simple things.
Yes.
Like, intentionality is so important. But the
Yeah.
the truth of that is, you can't be intentional with people who you don't know.
That part. And also in those settings, respecting the potential of what this could be. Meaning, if I have guy friends and you have female friends, there's got to be some boundaries within those relationships and friendships with those of the opposite sex. Like, let's talk about that for a second.
Hooey. You know what?
We,
Dr. Matisa just on Tuesday said, because were you
I
streaming?
was, of course, I'm every week.
Dr. Matisa came to eat the girls up.
She
First
did.
of all, she used an example like about women cheat. Women don't cheat. Who told her that? I'm just kidding. No, 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 no. But she was talking about emotional infidelity.
Hmm.
She only talked about it briefly, but it's a real thing.
Yeah,
And
it's a whole episode.
it's such a real thing. Like,
Like, let's talk about the lies. Like, oh, he's just like a brother to me. We throw around the hey cousin.
not cousin. That's new for me. I ain't never
Oh
heard
yeah,
no
hey
cousin.
cousin.
Oh no.
All these hugs. I need
So
my
this is
hug. I need my hug. Like, let's be for real
all
here.
of that got to go. So okay, there is a time and a place for when those kind of relationships change. Um, when you are dating, and everybody has a different definition of dating.
Yeah.
So my definition of dating is I'm getting the data. I'm here to find out how are we gonna work, are we not gonna work. Like some people think dating is you're my girlfriend, you're my boyfriend, whatever the case is. Now there's some people who like they use that and they say we're dating exclusively or not, right? Whatever.
Right.
Dating is not, for me, non-exclusive. We're gonna switch to courting after that because I'm not about to play no games. I'm not nobody's girlfriend.
So where's
Make
the
me
line
your wife.
between dating and courting in that?
Intention. Like that's the answer to everything today. Intention. At the
Intention.
point where she's talking about hugging, um, at the point where you have either made it known to me or you made it known to God that you want to pursue marriage, because from my understanding, courting is the kind of dating that is into, it's for marriage. Like this is the dating for marriage.
Hmm.
Like I feel like the dating that I described prior to, like it's kind of like a secular version of dating. Like there's no, like, let's be clear, the Bible don't really talk about dating,
No, there's not a lot there about it.
which is why I'm convinced I'm not a girlfriend. So
You just dropped a bomb. Hold on.
let me
Because he
stop
said he
playing
that
up.
findeth a wife, not a girlfriend.
Not a girlfriend. But hey man, we'll let that, we live in a different time. Let me not even start playing around because I don't want nobody to be offended.
We live in an offended society.
We gonna unpack that.
Th- this society is offensive. They're offended. The scripture says the generation is wiser but weaker. We're wiser in technology, but I also look at wiser as far as more cunning as well. But then weaker as and not able to stand correction. You don't like to be called out on your stuff. You don't want to be held accountable. But girl,
I
let
ain't gonna
me
lie. I I spent a couple years, couple strong years being offended. Everything
how?
offended me. I was a crybaby. I was like, everything offended me, and most times it was from people who I cared about.
Mm.
So, for instance, right, I'm gonna put him on blast. Y'all know Aaron Perkins. That's my little bro. He knows I'm sensitive, right? One day we're at the dinner table and he says, "You so sensitive," and it's like, you don't get to say that to me. I know that I'm sensitive. You know that I'm sensitive, but you don't get to say that to me. You're my friend. You're not supposed to say that. Like immediately offended for what? Like,
What you say?
and
Let it
let
go.
it go. Like you don't have to remind me,
I know I'm sensitive.
right, girl? But I'm talking about any. I was just offended about anything, and then I realized that like you kind of have to choose to be offended. People are offensive. Let's not, like, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna play the game like people don't be saying offensive stuff, right?
right.
Because people can be offensive, but I have to choose to be offended. I look at offense like this. Let's just say you, if you offend me, that's you throwing a brick at me.
Mm.
I see the brick coming. Am I gonna step over? Am I gonna catch the brick? Am I gonna let you hit me with it?
So
That's
how
my
does that play into
choice.
relationship? Because it still goes back
Offense?
to dating.
It
Yes.
does. It
Because
does.
when you okay, so there's a honeymoon phase, right?
Uh
Oh
huh.
my God, he's great. She's great. And then the representative starts to kind of fade to black, you know? And
This is
now one
taking me
day,
out.
then one day, Bae says something, and you kind of like, oh, no, wait a minute. No, wait a minute, man of God. Like, hold on. So what is that looking like for you at this point? Like, how do you
Exactly that. Exactly that. So if it's something that I could be overreacting about, because that's the thing, women overreact sometimes. If it's something that I could be overreacting about,
overreact
I'm
or
definitely
triggered?
that's two different things though.
Okay.
So I'll say this: triggers are from trauma. My thought. Overreacting can be I misheard you, I didn't understand you, I thought you said something you didn't, like, or I didn't feel like you should have said. I could be overreacting about what you said because it's likely not that deep. It also depends on the time of the month. Can we talk about that? Okay.
Mm.
So 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 in a relationship though, like if I'm offended by something, the first thing I ask myself is this the right time to say that I'm offended?
Mm.
Because I have to check myself first. Because I know that I'm an overthinker, because I know that I'm literally in therapy dealing with ruminating thoughts, I got to check myself first. Did I overreact or am I actually triggered? Did this hurt me because of how he said it or did it hurt me because of what he said? Before I bring anything to him, I need to know what I'm actually offended about.
Mm.
Because if I come to him and say, I don't like how you made me feel, and he say, well, how do you feel? And I can't tell him how I feel, what are we talking about?
What are we talking about? And isn't
So
there trust plays into that? Because if you have not totally healed, which could be a trigger, and you don't fully trust him because of unhealed trauma, then he says that. So now you're getting tight, right?
you
Because
don't need to
you're
be with nobody you can't trust.
right, that part.
That's the
So
that's the thing. So I can have open conversation about what offends me or what hurts. And that's another thing. Like in at the state that my relationship is in now, I don't even want to say it's like offense really, because when I think about offense, I think about someone's intent to hurt.
mm,
Because I trust my partner and because my partner is safe, I highly doubt he said this to hurt me.
yeah, because he probably wasn't even thinking like that.
Wasn't even think. First of all, men and women are wired completely different. He wasn't
Different.
thinking at all when he said it.
Right.
Whatever he said. So I think to answer the question for me, what it looks like is, babe, I ain't like that, or that didn't feel good, or like, ouch, like just something subtle, something soft. Like women, sometimes we get so rah. Like I used to be a rah girl. Like
What?
don't talk to me like that. I know you can't believe it, but child,
See what the Lord has done.
see what the Lord has done. No, for real. I don't look like what I've been through.
Okay.
I don't look like who I used to be either. Know that.
Delivered. What's that? Delivered.
Delivered. Ta 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 ta.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
it looks different for me now. It looks different. So I keep it soft. I keep it subtle. I keep it gentle because that's just how it should be in a relationship. Like when you really believe, like this person has my best interest, this person would not, and this goes for friendships too,
Yeah.
because that it have like you can be offended in friendships too. When if I really trust like this person is safe for me, this person is my friend, this person has what is their track record? What have they done in the relationship that looks like this or that doesn't look like this? Because then you can determine what the motive is, or you can just ask,
Hmm.
"Hey, babe, what did you mean when you said XYZ?" Oh, okay, great, because I was totally about to overreact. I
Yeah.
was totally about to flip out because I thought you were saying something completely different.
Yeah. And just looking at the context of what he said and why he said it, because like you said, men and women, we process a little differently. So sometimes before babe, it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Or sometimes he can foresee something you can't see. So he processed it and he may be two or three thoughts ahead of you and just you haven't seen that blind spot, and that's one of the perks of being in a relationship is catching
Yes,
each other's blind spots and to being
girl.
able to trust him to see like he was actually protecting me from something and that's why he said what he said, but I couldn't see it and be able to trust his sight as well. So that's really important.
Yep. And even I don't want to say like because I'm not married, I don't want to say like I'm practicing submission, because
Right.
in fact you are, but that plays into it too. If
Yeah.
again, because I'm in a courting relationship,
Hmm.
if I trust this person, I trust their word, I trust the God in them. Again, I trust that their intent is not to hurt me. Like, it's especially when you like are headed down the that like you almost married, or whatever the case is, you should believe that your partner is trying to love you with the love of God. You should believe that that's their goal. And if God thinks good things of me and about me and has good plans for me, and this man has the spirit of God, then I should think the same about him. And if you don't think that, you need to get out that relationship.
Yeah. And I think
Because
also too in that process, if you're praying and seeking God, if there is something, trusting that the Lord will show you and that person is vice versa. And not that you have to fall out, but it will just kind of dissolve and you go your separate ways peacefully. So that's, I think, I believe that's also part of the process is you're getting to know this person because dating is to gather data, but also at the same time in that data, you're operating in discernment and praying through the process as well. So
discernment, and if we brought it to like a secular term and we use the spreadsheet and data and all of that, it's the analyzation part.
that part really
Like,
good.
I got all the data. Now I need to analyze all of what's on this spreadsheet.
That part.
What does this look like at the end?
Yes, we've unpacked so much, and I definitely want to bring you back for part two of this conversation. Um, First of all, thank you for your transparency and just sharing parts of your journey with us here. I really appreciate it. Before we close things out, do you have any like takeaways, jewels, or nuggets that you would like to leave for the listeners and viewers, whether they catch you now or later? And then also tell us more about your Kinder brand and where people can contact you on social media.
Absolutely. I think the thing I'm going to say, regardless if it's relationships, dating, or familial, or friends, whatever, communities, go with God. We talked
Mhm.
about two things. We talked about intention, and we talked about discernment a whole lot. It was kind of intertwined in everything we talked
Yes.
about. So I think my biggest takeaway would be intentional about your relationship with God, so that it's easier for you to be intentional with your relationships with everybody else.
Mhm.
They're really going to always mimic each other. Every time. Every time.
Love it. And where can people contact you on social media?
Absolutely. If you are on Instagram, you can contact me at Laronda Yevell. That is LarondaYevell. And if you are looking for some candles or some scents, we are not currently active on this page, but you can follow the Faithful Flame Candle Co. on Instagram and on Facebook. And that's it. I'm so happy. This was so good.
Thank you. I hope that we'll get you back for part two. I'm really enjoying just having you here in the conversation. You gave us so many nuggets, insights, and pieces of wisdom. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. And everybody, I hope that you got something from this conversation here. I want to thank those that chimed in, popping in and out and everything. And I really appreciate you all just for rocking with us throughout this quarter of the Speaker Podcast. We are going on a little break, a little summer break, and then we'll be
As
back
you
in
should.
next month, just a couple of days off, and then we're going to hop right into June. I have an amazing lineup for you all. Be sure to stay in the loop. We are on Instagram, we're on Facebook, y'all. The website is out, it's available right now. Just go to Speaker Podcast on Facebook. I'm on Instagram at Camille.Essick. The website is available, CamilleEssick.com, YouTube, and you can also shoot me an email at the speakerpodcast@gmail.com. If you go to the website, I want to say in the next 72 hours or so, I'm going to release the June lineup. So be sure to subscribe because my subscribers get that news first. And also, there are blog, other things going on, as well as digital products. So with that being said, hold on just a second. After we end the show, Laronda, everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is Camille Essick. I am host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and critics connect. Be blessed. Have a safe weekend. Peace out. Bye.